Today we are talking about optimizing and converting open house leads as one conversation starter, and the other one is nailing the listing presentation primarily before and after. We're going to be talking about the details and nuts and bolts of a fantastic listing presentation. What's happening? I'm JC Agajanian, broker associate with the Whissel Realty Group at EXP, and as usual, we are bringing you the summary of the Monday Morning Mastermind, produced by the Fast Forward Network, a beast of a team, crossing all state lines, going all over the country, and many different brokerages, sharing information about each other and helping each other grow. So lots of experience offered up every week, and today we had a couple great questions that we're going to cover. These are questions offered up by members of the Fast Forward Network to other members, and so people who've got the experience pipe up and share, because there's always somebody in the roughly 600 to 800 member group that are there on the Zoom every morning that have got exactly the experience that some other member needs. So today we are talking about optimizing and converting open house leads as one conversation starter, and the other one is nailing the listing presentation primarily before and after. We're going to be talking about the details and nuts and bolts of a fantastic listing presentation probably next week, at least sometime in the near future. But today we just focused for this question on the pre-selling and the post-selling, assuming that you didn't get that listing appointment. So, a listing agreement signed. So let's get straight into the first one. Optimizing and converting open house leads. So before we do anything talking about logistics or details or steps and things to do, we need to talk about your mindset. You're on stage here. You are not here begrudgingly going into the open house and sitting there hanging out in the kitchen because there's a counter and it's not a staged home and there's nowhere else to sit and just waiting for people to come and go. You got to think of yourself as the star of the show. You're on stage, you're the actor presenting the experience to the guests coming through the door. The host of a fancy cocktail party can be another attitude that you take with this, but you've got to have the right mindset. You're the one on stage, be at the door, use your body to physically block the door, because the point of this exercise is to meet people and collect their information and either set an appointment right then and there or get their information so that you can follow up with them and then set an appointment later. So, hey, if you're standing at the door, if you're meeting people, you're getting them signed in and it creates a line, that's great. I mean, most places that people want to get into have a line at the door. You think of a hot restaurant or a popular club, there's a line. And so no problem. Don't get stressed out. People are backed up. This isn't your typical open house. We're coming to this with new eyes and a different mentality, right? So let's get that first, right? So now, if you have the opportunity, if you're having conversation with somebody once you're in this open house, make sure that you text them information they need. If there's something about a property line or an HOA or specifics about the property, hey, I'll shoot that to you real quick. What's your number again? And that way you have their accurate information, because you never know if they are telling you the truth or lying to you when they fill out your registration form. And then an important kind of follow-up question, let's say everything goes well, they come through. A great way to leave, assuming you've got information and you haven't already set up an appointment right then and there, but a great way to leave is say, hey, can you see yourself living here? Yeah, that's a great question. And then they will be honest with you because they got nothing to lose. They're going to say yes because I love it and blah, 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 or they're going to say no because of X, Y, and Z, and that's going to be helpful information that you can bring back to your seller when the time has come. Back to the mindset again, and this is more of being purposeful with what we're doing, because it's a lot of effort. Any of you agents out there that know, putting on open houses can be a chore, especially if you don't have any assistance, any help doing the scheduling, the marketing, the signage. The signs are the big one, especially if you're doing a lot of signs. We put about 30 to 50 signs out for our open houses. So it can be a chore. But if you don't have a dedicated interest and an intention of registering every guest that comes through that door and then following up like crazy, just don't even bother. What are we doing here, right? That's the whole purpose of this thing. Sure, you're doing a solid for your seller and you're letting them know that you care about the listing and you're willing to work for it. But we all know that most buyers come from other agents and or something seen online and then an appointment set up. Very, very few times do buyers stumble across an open house, love it, and say, I want to buy it today. I mean, that happens once in a while, but it's not the core competency of an open house. It's really there to help you build your business and, of course, to help maximize exposure for your seller while you're at it. So, on the intentions of registering everybody, following up, making sure you get to know everybody, there's different ways to go about this. One way that an agent raised her hand and explained what she does is she prints up a nice branded, basically, 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with instructions and a big fat QR code, and it just tells them what they need to do to get registered. And then there's going to be a few questions as well. And, if they walk right by it, just be like, oh, hey, I don't know if you caught that over here, but let me get help. And you get another registration here and they can set up to that QR code. Of course, lots of people have the old tried and true piece of paper with names. Of course, people can scribble. There's a chance you're going to get bad information no matter what, but handwritten stuff can get sloppy. I like to use an iPad, but the QR code is something that is new to me as far as for the purposes of an open house sign and not some menu at a restaurant, right? But that could work as well too. And there's definitely some things that you can do to help ease this process, and this sounds like one of them. Another great way to capitalize on the off-market offering, which is a nice hook that you ought to use for most people that come through your property. You never know exactly what the true motivation of individual buyers are, but usually coming across a piece of property that when they're in the market shopping for properties that is not on the MLS and is not on Zillow, that's going to be intriguing to them. So merely mentioning it or talking about having a system and a network that helps you find them is one thing. But another great way to say less and still build more intrigue on that subject is to have one of those old school 3-ring binders, with the little clear top and you could slide a page in the top. And one of our members of the Fast Forward Network actually had it on hand. And he held it up and like, this is what it is. And basically on the top it said San Diego private sellers list. And on the bottom it said in parentheses off-market listings. And so they just have it there. And then it's not out of sight, so people can't pick it up and start just thumbing through it. But if someone asks about it, say, oh, actually, that's just a list of off-market properties that we offer to our clients. I can't just give it to everybody, but if you'd like to explore what it looks like to work with us and call me your realtor and learn more about what that looks like, I'd be happy to meet with you. How's tomorrow at 2 or 4? The appointment setting goes from there. So it's a great way to attract interest, to develop intrigue, and then kind of take it away and say, sorry, that's really only something I can offer to my clients, but I'd love to share what that looks like for you. So the other, this is going back to the idea of mindset again, is we're not just here looking for buyers. We're looking for opportunities. So if we have a buyer walk through, this property doesn't quite work because of X, Y, and Z, and then somebody else comes through and they're a nosy neighbor, who knows? Maybe that nosy neighbor with the right property might be a good match for this buyer. I mean, that would be an ideal situation, but forget about the buyer. Maybe that nosy neighbor has intentions of moving in the near future. I mean, so we're looking for opportunities, really. We're not just looking for buyers. Sellers are going to come through the opens. So, yeah, I mean, be prepared. you know, scriptings, dialogues, these things are huge tools that we use in our business, and any person in any sales industry needs to know what to say and when to say it and how to deliver that information. So use good scripting, welcome them in, have an icebreaker. If you've got something going on, like if you're catering the event, if it's a bigger open house, have, fresh tacos around or whatever the case may be. Have them look around. And then on this subject, another agent said that he actually does things a little bit differently. Instead of standing physically in front of the door, greeting them nicely and getting them signed in and then welcoming them in, he says, come on in. He's very casual, has that icebreaker, has the right scripting, and then says, before you leave, would you please stop with me? I've got a couple questions I want to ask you. And then that's when he signs them in. And that's when he develops rapport even further. And that's when he really learns what that particular buyer or seller or sell by client is looking for. Another thing that you can do to develop intrigue without really selling and pushing on people is to ask questions, specifically things that you can offer them that maybe other people aren't. A lot of people say they've got realtors, but the realtors maybe met them once, send them some properties and say, call me when you see something you like. Like, that's not adding value, right? So maybe ask them about the market conditions. Hey, do you have anybody updating you on these market conditions? A great metric to use is the month supply of inventory. It's very common for us in the business to talk in these numbers and to know what's a neutral market, what's a buyer's market, what's a seller's market, as far as how many months supply of inventory there are, and what that concept even means. What does a month supply of inventory mean to a buyer? Well, if you can explain all that to them succinctly and quickly, all of a sudden, you've established yourself as the expert. You've just right now demonstrated that you know more than they do for crying out loud, which you should, but you also probably know more than that other agent they've spoken to or the other 10 agents that they just walked through all these open houses over the past couple of weeks. So ask them information that you actually have and can help them with and say, hey, I'd be happy to give you more of this type of information so that you're armed and ready to make that decision when the time comes. Another great speaking point on mentality and something that you can actually use as a mini script when you have these conversations with people is the concept of, hey, you know what? Our company operates under the philosophy that when people have accurate and reliable information, they just make better decisions. Wouldn't you agree? Of course, they're going to agree. How could you say no to that question, right? Cool. So, it's my job to empower you with as much information as possible so that you can make the right decision for you and your family, because frankly, I can give you the information, but I don't know what's going to be right for you. It's my job to walk you through this process and make sure that we look out for any pitfalls that may come. When's a great time to chat about that further? I mean, that's a very soft sales pitch, but actually offers a lot of information. I feel like someone who turns that down is just not really all that serious. So that's kind of the it. There's more to it, but that's all we covered on converting the open houses. Of course, the main thing should go without saying. You collect the information, you put it in your CRM. Actually, but let me back up. Before you put it in your CRM, send a message right there when you're wrapping up the open house. Make a quick video, send it to them, the very least, maybe a voice memo or a text. Explain who you are. You're thankful for them to come through today and that you look forward to talking to them soon. Be on it with the follow-up and then put it in the system and treat it like any other lead, whether you paid $1,000 to Zillow for a lead or if you've got some sort of percentage sharing lead from OpCity or something like that. Whatever the case, or if you paid a lot of money with Google pay-per-click, put it in your system and treat it as if it's any other lead that you need to reach, that you need to find out, what their timing and motivation is and how you can help them when the time is right for them. If there's one thing you walk away with, that's huge. Don't waste the opportunity because you put all the time and effort and energy and some money into this open house. Don't waste it. Make the most of it and get business from it. So that's it for the open house conversation. Now we're going to move on to nailing the listing presentation, primarily in the pre-selling and the post-selling So, what are you going to do? There's been lots of conversation through various coaches in in the damn near 2 decades that I've been doing this. I've heard lots of ideas. Pre-selling is important. First and foremost, you want to separate yourself out, especially if there's going to be other listing appointments with other agents with this particular seller. So you want to get information into their hands while they can digest it on their own time ahead of time so that they're aware of it, they've looked through it before they see you face to face, right? So that's the concept of pre-selling. There have been coaches that instruct you to make a box full of cool stuff and have it FedEx to the door. I've seen people talk about video books where they actually open it and it's some sort of screen. It's a video book with a presentation. I've seen people send boxes full with notebook information, just full, like a whole, like almost the whole listing presentation in there as well. There's lots of different things you can do. We lean pretty hard on the technical side of things in our office. So we use a system called HighNote. And HighNote is basically a quick and easy way to make a miniature customized web page for that person, along with customized links that are trackable so that you are alerted when someone is looking not just at the whole presentation, but at which asset in that presentation. So for example, if I've got a video about myself, introducing them, telling them, what core values I live by just personally and how that extends into my business, and then share a little bit about my family and my personal interests, which I do. It's basically an agent bio video. It's professionally produced. It looks great. I've got that in there among a bunch of other things, maybe some market stats and a blank copy of a listing agreement. And maybe I have my CMA in there as well, and who knows what else. Some links to Zillow reviews. This is what I do every time, by the way, and there's more that I include. This system will actually tell me, hey, they went for 30 seconds, 2 seconds, but actually they spent 5 minutes on, let's say, the CMA. So that tells me that's their focus. They are primarily concerned about value and price more so than how cute I look in a suit, or, what the latest market stats are in this specific zip code, right? Because HighNote told me this is where they spend all their time. It's a great tool, and it's not overly expensive to use. So I love using HighNote for pre-selling. There's a lot of different things you can do, but definitely add value in the pre-selling just before you even meet. It's a great thing to do. Now, let's assume they didn't sign. Hey, it seemed everything went well. We had great rapport. For one reason, they didn't want to sign right then and there. This happens a lot. And the first thing we should do is have a pretty good idea of what that reason was for them not signing right now, right? Is it something personal? Is it something about timing? Is it another person that isn't there? Or is there another listing appointment right around the corner with some other agent? So whatever the case may be, you want to have a good understanding of why they didn't sign right then and there. And before I move on, please tell me you've tried to close more than once for those signatures. You can't stop at less than 3. You got to try at least 3 times to find out why they don't want to sign and ask them to do it again politely and professionally, but persistently, right? Please do not ask once or say, what do you think? That's not a close. What do you think is not a close? Ask them if they feel comfortable moving forward with you. If the answer is yes, the next steps are sign this paperwork and put us to work, etc. I mean, there's different ways you can do it, but go for the close. If there's an objection, find out what it is, isolate it. I mean, this is a whole different science that you can go into, is isolating and overcoming objections. But you need to figure out what it is. What is the reason they're not signing with you and moving forward? Try at least 3 times. Should be more than that, but try at least 3 times before you can let yourself say, okay, this makes sense. I understand. I've asked 3 different ways why they don't feel comfortable moving forward. I either got my answer or I got a stone wall, but at least you've made an effort, right? Okay, so we have a good idea of what it is. Now, there's a couple great tips that some seasoned agents brought up on the subject, assuming that you don't get the signatures right then and there. So if you're going to leave that house without paperwork, the first thing you should do is go for a reconsultation appointment. The purpose for this is whenever you meet somebody, your goal should always be to leave with paperwork or leave with an appointment. An appointment is a good consolation prize and a lot better than nothing, right? So, without the paperwork, you go for that reconsultation appointment right then and there. So, you know, hey, I understand that you've got a couple other people you want to meet. You know what I did is I actually I created a little short list of cheat sheets for you when you go through this interview process. These are really valuable questions for you to ask any realtor. And I figured, if you're not just gonna go ahead and sign with me right now, and you want to make sure you explore your options, these are going to be great ways that you can make sure that you're going to be working with the right person. Now, this is stacking the deck, because what you can do is stack these questions up so that the answer for you is clearly yes, but the answer for someone else may or may not be yes. So you add all the things that you do differently, things that make you and your team different, things that are going to be valuable to sellers. And you can start with a basic, Google search of what are the best questions to ask to a real estate agent when interviewing them. And then you can handpick. But whatever you do, make sure that this thing is going to paint you in a shining light, that you are awesome because you're nailing every single one of these. And frankly, other agents may or may not be able to work with them or answer yes to those. So on your way out, say, here you go. And by the way, the purpose for the reconsultation is, listen, I understand that there's probably going to be some things that we maybe forgot to discuss today, and that's assuming that they're not meeting other agents. And then if they are meeting other agents, you're probably going to come up with new questions or maybe thoughts that you'd like to discuss from having these other conversations with agents. And so this is not a big time waste for you. It'll probably take 10 or 20 minutes, but I would like to set up a time for me to come back and just discuss those with you real quickly and see if I can help clarify in any way new thoughts or questions that arise as you walk through this process and selecting the realtor that is right for you. And that way you have your appointment when you don't have your paperwork, which, like I said, is a whole lot better. And the side effect of that is that person is probably going to feel a lot more reluctant to go ahead and sign with anybody else because you've got a reconsultation appointment already on the books in their calendar. So another thing that you can do, which I've had varying degrees of success with, is offering a cancellation guarantee in writing. I feel like if someone doesn't want to sign right then and there, usually a cancellation guarantee doesn't all of a sudden take them off that stance and move them to being willing, but it's worth a try because it's there for a reason. Realtors use it widely, so maybe it does for you. It depends on your personal experience. And then also be thinking of how you can provide value to this person, even if there's no commitment that they're going to work with you at all. So things like possibly a vendor list. Hey, I'm going to leave this behind. These are actually my preferred vendors, and they're going to, they help a lot of my clients get their home in ship shape and prepped and ready to go get photos and to get on the market and get showing. So I'm just going to leave this here, no obligation. And then, think about that. If they call that person, well, shoot, that's great because they'll probably call you and let them know. And even if you don't get a call from your vendor, they're now kind of indebted to you. You've offered value. You didn't ask for anything in return. They're working with somebody who hopefully will paint you in a good light. And you've done them a solid. And so that's going to put you in the favorable column in their heart and mind when they think about you. In the event that you somehow miss the fact that this person is really a long-term seller, they're not going to be selling anytime soon. It's going to be a year or so. A great way to try and not just call that as a lost opportunity and, okay, now I'm going to have to do some long-term follow-up, which you are, by the way, but come up with another talking point with them. Educate them on how quickly things can change in the market and how fast a home like theirs can become hot and sought after, so that in the event that something like that happens, or in the event that what they have their eyes on, where they want to move when they sell this home, suddenly becomes available, so that they don't get caught with their pants down, unprepared, in order to really make a move on that property. Let's say, let's just load the cannon for you. And what does that mean? Well, it's not a much. It's really just knowing that we're going to work together, first of all. So we'll just get this paperwork knocked out, and then, well, let's go ahead and do the first couple steps. We'll get the home cleaned up and we'll get the photos taken, and that way we've done a couple of the most important first steps, which is knowing who's going to be helping you through this process and getting the marketing photos taken, so that if we decide we want to move that timeline up, or you see that home that you love, or whatever the case may be, or if you want me to shop your property offline, off the MLS, and find a buyer without you really having to deal with the public coming into your home, we could do all of these things with our off-market property listing program. So let's load the cannon, get it ready, and that way, if and when anything changes, we'll be ready to go. This is a great way for those longer term sellers to help reel them in. And even if they don't change their timeline, they're committing to you, and they're going to be ready to rock when the time is ready. And if they do see something they want, they can move that timeline and be good to go. So that's all we got for you today. I hope that what you've heard today is helpful, beneficial, something that you can implement into your business right away. And of course, as usual, I am happy to chat about any of it. Just shoot me a DM right here, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.